Gotta stop him.
There's always more to the story.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
And there's always more to say.
Don't ever bring that nonsense in here again.
When going too far feels closer.
Maybe I overdid it.
This space thrives on the restricted. This is the Restricted Area with Robert Guerra.
Yes, sir. Back at it again with the latest edition of the Restricted Area podcast with me, Robert Guerra. Rob G, if you are nasty, coming to you live from sunny Southern California. And boy, do we have a show for you today. Got some big picture thoughts on something in the world of sports that combines two stories that are not going to make any sense at first, but I promise you when I bring it together, it's going to fit together real nice, like ham and tuna fish. Shout out to Big Daddy. Then we're going to close the pod with some mailbag. Figure to let you guys have some fun with this one. Before we get to that, let me just say this. Thank you from the bottom of my heart to everybody, and I do mean everybody, who tuned in last week when I hosted Fox Sports Radio for about a week there, 2 days with Ephraim Salam, 2 days with Monty Bolaños. We had a little bit of motion. A couple of our YouTube clips did very well. One particular on Russell Westbrook did the best of any Fox Sports Radio YouTube clip all week. So thank you so much to everybody who tuned in, listened live, checked out the podcast, or watched some of the YouTube clips. I never expected realistically that I'd be able to host like that for that extended period of time. I thought maybe one off here and there. You know, maybe Rob Parker takes a vacation, Kelvin Washington takes a vacation. I can get spot duty, you know, something like that. But to have my boss trust me to lead the show for an entire week, I thought was fantastic. It was a dream come true. And, you know, it's something I never really expected. So I'm happy I was able to do it. We'll see if I'll be able to do it more frequently. I've been told, I heard through the grapevine that I'm going to be hosting a couple more shows again next week. And my boss hasn't told me that. Someone else told me. So we'll see what happens, right? And the other thing I did notice, and this is on the flip side, the exact opposite of that. Last week's podcast episode was our least watched podcast in the history of this program. Like, what the heck, bro? What are we doing? And maybe it could be because you all were so locked into the radio show, you didn't care about the podcast, or maybe you all are just not fantasy football fans like that. And if that's the case, I'm going to have to rethink my entire approach to the upcoming NFL season because I want to do some fantasy football stuff. So we'll see. We are going to do some gambling stuff. I'll tell you that right now. I don't care what you say. I don't care if you don't like it. I like it. So I'm going to keep doing it. There's going to be a segment every week during the NFL season. We'll be picking games against the spread. You can either follow me, fade me, whatever you want to do, but the friendly fade of the NFL season is coming once football season starts. Now that that's out of the way, let's get to it again. Two big stories in the world of sports that on their face are not going to seem like they are related, but promise you that they are. The first one comes from the NFL. And I don't know if you saw this, but on Monday, it was reported that Jacksonville Jaguars two-way star Travis Hunter played exclusively at cornerback through the entirety of their practice. And that continues a trend that we've seen throughout camp coming out of Jacksonville. Entering Tuesday, Travis Hunter had been on the field for 11 on 11s only. I don't care about the one-on-one drills. I don't like that's immaterial for this conversation. He had been on the field for 178 total snaps entering Tuesday. 116 on defense, 61 on offense, and 1 on special teams. Now, those numbers are only going to be going up as the week progresses. Now we're recording this here on Thursday because, as I mentioned, the plan for now is for Travis Hunter to be a full-time cornerback and only a part-time wide receiver. That's notable because if you recall last season during his rookie season, they tried to have him do both as much as possible, maybe about 60% of the snaps on defense, about 70% of the snaps on offense, and see how it goes. And then towards the end there, before he got hurt, and I'm going to come back to that in a second, before he got hurt, it was like 80 to 90% offense and very minimal on defense. Now, flash forward to this current training camp, exclusively full-time on defense. And when he does rotate in on offense, it's only as the wide receiver 3. Okay. So he's not running with the ones. The ones are Jacoby Myers and Parker Washington. The twos are Brian Thomas and Travis Hunter. Okay. So the first small picture thought of that is, well, now it's clear more than ever that the Jacksonville Jaguars botched that trade in a big way. The trade they made on draft night last season, they traded 4 picks, including a future first rounder to move up 3 spots so they could take Travis Hunter second overall. The exact terms were the number 5, a second rounder, a 4th rounder, and then a future 4th and 6th plus a future first. So they gave up all of those assets expecting that they would have a 2-way Pro Bowler, maybe even a 2-way All-Pro in Travis Hunter. And what they found out very early on was that it doesn't really work that way in the NFL, right? Like, I know he won the Bednarik Award for the top defensive player in college football, and I think he also won the Blitnikoff Award for the best wide receiver, and he became the first player ever to do something like that, right? Because 2-way stars just don't happen. You don't see it ever in major college football. But then you get to the regular season there in Jacksonville, and I mentioned they started out doing both. Eventually, they tweaked over the offense because they thought their offense needed a little bit of juice, and they thought he could provide it for them. And what happens? He ends up hurting his, I think it was his LCL in a non-contact injury on Halloween. Missed the rest of the season. You'll recall he also missed time in college with injuries. Okay. So you mean to tell me that Travis Hunter has so far, save for 1 season in college, been unable to play both sides of the ball full time in a major football setting? That's interesting. And you jump over to a different story this week. Again, this is going to sound like they're not related, but I promise you that they are. Shohei Ohtani and Pete Crow Armstrong are in the middle of an incredible battle to win the NL MVP award. They both have been fluctuating as the favorite, depending on which place you shop at. I would like, for DraftKings, that's the one I think is, I don't know if it's the best, but it's the one that gives the most up-to-date odds for my purposes, right? Because if I'm doing different sports producing on a daily basis, some of them only update once a week, some update twice a week. In my experience, DraftKings is almost daily that I'll see an updated odds. And most recently, Pete Crow Armstrong was the favorite, which is fine, right? Pete Crow Armstrong's having a great season. And then a couple days later, ESPN comes out with a player poll, an anonymous player poll, where they survey 21 different anonymous National League players to get their thoughts on who they think should be the NL MVP. Now, 2 people said they should split the award, which I'm not going to count that. Like, make a decision, bro. It's not that hard. Pick one. You like one, you like one. You like chicken, you like hamburgers, right? You like Chinese, you like Italian. I like both, of course. I like both of everything. But if I got to pick one, I'm going to pick hamburgers. If I like one, I'm going to pick Italian. Like, it's not that difficult, right? So forget those guys. They don't matter. But of the remaining 19 voters, 15 pick Pete Crow Armstrong and 4 pick Shohei Ohtani. That is very notable for 2 reasons. One, their stats are so similar in terms of batting average, home runs, slugging, all that stuff, right? It's very nip and tuck there. Like, depending what day you listen to this, one guy might have taken a leap over the other one. It's that close. The difference is do you value PCA's defensive abilities, which he is one of the best in all of baseball, or do you value Shohei Ohtani as a pitcher? Because Shohei Ohtani was in the Cy Young conversation earlier this season before he got hurt. Again, we will come back to that part. So that's part of it. The other interesting fact is, why is it that a situation where these 2 players, obviously very, very close, 50 cents in one hand, half a dollar in the other, why is it that the vote would be so slanted in one direction if the numbers, again, are very similar? You could argue it's jealousy. That's something Rob Parker has said, and I would kind of agree with that. Because when you have a situation like Shohei Ohtani in baseball, Michael Jordan, LeBron James in basketball, where you could make them the MVP basically every year, you'd be justified. At some point, the voters are like, well, you know what? This guy's won enough times. This guy's having a good season. He's very deserving. Let's give it to this guy because this guy's already got 4, 5, 6 MVPs, right? So that very well could happen to Shohei Ohtani. But I mentioned the reason why it is close is because batting is close, but PCA is still playing elite defense day in, day out. Shohei Ohtani is no longer pitching, and he may not pitch again this season. Hell, I think Dave Roberts even said on record that if and when Ohtani gets back to the mound, it's not going to be as a full-time pitcher. It's going to be either as an opener, maybe even a middle reliever, something like that. That they can't trust his injury, if it's his bicep and his knee, things like that. But if you pull the curtain back a little bit, if you peel back the onion, you'll see that Shohei Ohtani, for my money, the single greatest two-way athlete we have ever seen. Apologies to Deion Sanders, but you were getting spot duty in the NFL as wide receiver. You played baseball, great, good on you, but that's apples to oranges. I'm talking about playing both sides of the ball in baseball or in football, because those are the ones that only have two sides of the ball, right? Basketball's up and down, doesn't count. Hockey's up and down, doesn't count. So of those two, Shohei Ohtani is the one. It's like him and Babe Ruth. Make whatever one you prefer. I prefer Ohtani just because the modern era, I think it's a harder time to play. But if you look at Ohtani's history, when he pitches, for the most part, he is a very good offensive player. 2022, 15-9, 2.33 ERA, 34 homers, 95 RBI. That's a very good season. 2023, 10-5, 3.14 ERA, 44 homers, 95 RBI. That's a very good season. 2021, I skipped that one, 9-2, 3.18 ERA, 46 homers, 100 RBI. Again, a very good season. A great season, even. The reason, though, that he's only had 3, we'll call it great seasons as a two-way player, is because he's gotten hurt multiple times. He had Tommy John surgery once. He had another, they didn't call it Tommy John surgery, but UCL repair, which is also the Tommy John ligament. So I don't know why it's not Tommy John surgery. But hey, so twice he's gotten that elbow repaired. And in 2024, when he decided, I cannot pitch, I'm coming off of surgery, all I'm going to do is be a full-time hitter. What does he do? 54 home runs, 59 stolen bases, 130 RBI. That is elite of the elite. We have never seen a 50-50 member in baseball history. The following season, he doesn't start pitching until way later because they felt he had needed more time to recover. Still finishes 55 homers and 102 RBIs. Not quite elite, but very, very good. Again, another MVP award. This season, they decide we're going to really focus on you being a pitcher. You haven't pitched in about a year and a half. We think you're fully recovered. Let's see what happens, Shohei. He starts off the season 8-2, 1.79 ERA, cruising on his way to Cy Young consideration, right? He was going to be an MVP as a batter only, potentially could be an MVP Cy Young as a pitcher only. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, his body broke down, couldn't handle it. So you have Travis Hunter now being forced to focus only on one side of the ball. Shohei Ohtani now only focusing on one side of the plate, one side of the ball because he's no longer pitching, he's only hitting. And that leads me to this bigger statement that I want to make. We got to stop the two-way charade. The human body is not built to handle those kind of rigors at the professional level. It just isn't. And if it was, we would see other players doing this besides these two unicorn athletes. Travis Hunter, aside from the injury, again, because that goes without saying, I think that's pretty obvious, right? When you put that much wear and tear on your body as a football player or that much wear and tear as a baseball player, your body is going to break down faster than another player's would have. But when it comes to Travis Hunter specifically, Travis Hunter, if he were to have stayed with both sides of the ball and only played 50% on one side, 50% on the other, maybe he's a one-time, two-time Pro Bowler, right? Just because he's that physically gifted. But if he focuses on one side of the ball, we already saw in college, he was voted as the single best defensive player in the entire country. We already saw in college, he was voted as the single best wide receiver in the entire country. If he were to focus on one side of the ball, you're looking at an all-pro. Perennially an all-pro. And that's the difference between locking in, spreading it around. When you're spread that thin, you're never going to develop the technique needed to reach the highest highs. Athletically, he's fine. Athletically, he is so gifted, it's laughable, right? But you cannot trust that he is going to become a wide receiver the likes of Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, hell, even a CeeDee Lamb, Puka Nacua, whoever your guy is. If Travis Hunter is splitting time playing defense and offense, he's never going to reach those heights. Conversely, if you look at the defensive side of the ball, Patrick Surtain is one of the great corners. You know, Stingley's pretty good. There's a list of guys, but Surtain is pretty clearly head and shoulders above everybody else right now. Some guys in Seattle are pretty good as well. Devin Witherspoon. Travis Hunter could never reach the heights of a Witherspoon or a Surtain if he's splitting time one way or the other. And again, go back to baseball. Shohei Ohtani. When Shohei Ohtani focused on just being a batter, 2024, he's right there with Aaron Judge, who is arguably, or not even arguably, he is the single greatest hitter of this generation and one of the greatest hitters in baseball history. This season, Shohei Ohtani, when they decided early on, we are going to lock the F in and hope that we can win a Cy Young, because that would just put you in an unreal elite of the elite category that nobody can touch. Starts off 8-2, 1.79 ERA. So if Shohei Ohtani had decided, you know what, I'm not going to focus on batting practice. I'm not going to do long toss to warm up my right arm. I am only going to focus on batting cages, studying film, studying tendencies, and I'm going to be the best hitter I can be. Conversely, I'm going to focus just on being a pitcher. I'm going to get my bullpen sessions in, get my long toss in, get my motion down so that I can be the best possible pitcher I could be. If that happened, you are looking at arguably right there with Aaron Judge as the single greatest hitter of this generation, Shohei Ohtani. If he focuses just on pitching, I know it's kind of too far down because he got multiple elbow injuries, but if you focus just on pitching, you're looking at a perennial Cy Young candidate. Now, he's cleaning up on the MVPs anyways because he's doing both sides and people don't know how to quantify it. So, you know, kudos to him. But if he had just focused on one or the other, he could be in the conversation for the greatest ever at hitting or the greatest ever at pitching. Instead, we're going to settle for him being very good at one and good at the other. Very good as a hitter and just good, solid, like a number 3, number 4 starter as a pitcher. Now, again, because we've never seen this before, he's going to collect all these MVPs and people are going to say he's the greatest who ever lived, and that's fine. But if you talk to guys like Rob Parker, who's a noted Ohtani hater, full disclosure, he'll tell you, hey, compare Shohei Ohtani's batting numbers to Aaron Judge. Compare his batting numbers to Barry Bonds. It's not even close. Compare Shohei Ohtani's pitching to Roger Clemens. Not even close. Compare it to Randy Johnson, Pedro Martinez. Not even close. Like those guys, again, specialists, if that's what you want to call them, were elite, all-time great Hall of Famers at one thing. Shohei Ohtani, if you just take his numbers independently as a hitter and as a pitcher, he is not Hall of Fame worthy at either one of them. Where he's going to get the benefit out is that he has both. And I just want to say this again, bringing it a full circle with both of these guys. When it comes to Travis Hunter, when it comes to Shohei Ohtani, stop the two-way charade. Because number one, your bodies have already proven that they cannot handle it. And that's no shame. I appreciate you trying, but that's just not possible. But number two, if you really want to reach the pinnacle of what you can be as an athlete, you're going to have to focus on one or the other. That's just my opinion. Man, what, 20 minutes on that? Didn't expect that. All right, without further ado, sorry about that, folks. It's time for the mailbag.
You've got mail.
Oh my God, I'm your biggest fan.
It's time for some fan mail.
Love the open. Shout out to Ricky. Shout out to Ricky. Came up with that open, man. He's got another one coming for the friendly faves. Let you know. All right, here we go. Really quick. I'm going to get to as many of these as I can here in the next 10 minutes. Dre asks, outside of your Cowboys pick, do you have any other hot takes for the upcoming season? Don't call it a hot take. My Cowboys pick is not a hot take. That is a well-informed, well-thought-out opinion. Yes, the Dallas Cowboys are going to win that division. Okay, I got one for you. This one, credit to Monty Bolaños, who was on the show 2 weeks ago. We hosted the show on Fox Sports Radio last week. She kind of got my brain working on this one. We were picking the divisional winners for this upcoming NFL season. Not officially. We still got time to really make our case. But for the most part, we had to make our picks on last Friday's show. And one thing I've noticed after doing that segment with her and kind of marinating on it now for about a week since then is that the NFC South has completely broken my brain. Doesn't make sense to me because I was going down the list with Monty picking our NFL division winners. And I noticed that the only repeat champion that I'm picking this season, again, as of last week, we'll see if my opinion changes, is the Carolina Panthers in the NFC South. Not because I think the Carolina Panthers are any good, but because I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a dead team walking. They're a very talented team, but I think they're ready to move on from this current iteration. I think they're ready to start fresh. I think they know that Baker Mayfield has a ceiling and where he can get him. And they are one of those teams where like, hey, if we would much rather take a step back to take a step forward. So I think after this season, Baker will be out of there. They'll have a new quarterback. That's number one. I do not trust the quarterback situation at all in Atlanta. Skill positions are great. Bijan, Kyle Pitts, depending how you feel about him, right? Drake London's very good. They got some very good pieces. Defense has some athletes. Tua, I can't trust him to stay healthy. And Michael Penix Jr., I can't trust to stay healthy. So they are eliminated by default. Number three, I said already mentioned, I'm picking Carolina to win the division. But then here's the other one, the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints are not a good football team, or they weren't a good football team last season. But they did close the season very well. So one of the other topics we didn't have time to get to, but we were discussing, what is the best worst to first option this upcoming NFL season? Because this happens every year. If you know anything about football, you know it's a yearly thing. At least one team goes worst to first. Now, I removed the NFC North from that conversation only because they all finished within a game of each other. So I don't feel like that's a fair fight, right? Like, because if you're saying, oh, I'm picking the Detroit Lions or the Minnesota Vikings to win the division this year, like you're not really saying much because they missed it by one game, right? I'm talking about were you the guy who had the Washington Commanders a couple of years ago? Something like that. Were you a guy who had the Tennessee Titans a couple of years before that? Stuff like that. The Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow. And as I'm going over down the list and I say, okay, I'm removing the NFC North, the team that I think has the most likely chance to go worst to first is the New Orleans Saints with Tyler Shuck and Kellen Moore. They got some talent on there. Even with the Kamara injury, like they got some weapons. Shook is a much better player than I ever thought he would be coming out of college. And so it's like, well, shit. I'm only picking one team to repeat as champions, Carolina, but the team I think is the best option or worst to first is the New Orleans Saints. So how can I have both? It doesn't make sense. And again, it makes me look stupid. So that's, I guess, my hot take is that the NFC South broke my brain. And either one of those things would be a hot take, right? Carolina winning the division, Saints winning the division. But yeah, I guess that, I don't know if that answers your question, Dre, but that's what I got. Jay asks, are you ready to throw in the towel on Shedeur Sanders? Did I ever wave a towel for Shedeur? Like, I don't know. I guess sure. I mean, the story this week in Cleveland is that Todd Monken, head coach, promised that both Deshaun Watson and Shedeur Sanders in the quarterback battle would get starts in week 1 and week 2 of the preseason. And then by week 3, they would make a decision on who the QB1 would be. So preseason week 1, Deshaun Watson start. Shedeur came off the bench. This week, Shedeur is supposed to start. Deshaun Watson supposed to come off the bench. And the thing that's not looking good for Shedeur is that earlier this week, I think it was on Wednesday, Todd Monken said, well, we're also having joint practices this week with Buffalo. And if things go the way they have been going and the way we expect them to go, there's a good chance I'm not going to play the rest of the starters in week 2 on the offensive side of the ball. So if I'm Shedeur Sanders and I hear that, that kind of tells me without telling me that they've already made that decision, that this is not really a competition, that Deshaun Watson is going to be the QB1 there in Cleveland. So I never thought Shedeur was all that great to begin with. I thought he had some promise, thought he had some talent, but I was never on the train like, oh, he's going to be the next Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. I was never there. But one thought I do have about Shedeur Sanders, and it's less about him and more about another quarterback, is why are we spending so much time tearing down and poking fun at Shedeur Sanders when the number 1 overall pick in his draft class, Cam Ward, has been terrible so far in the NFL? All right. All the slander that we're giving to Shedeur should be directed at that guy. Shedeur Sanders is a 5th round pick. Cam Ward went 1st overall. Cam Ward in his first NFL preseason action this season went 5 for 12, 57, and had a pick dropped. Hit the guy right in the numbers and he just dropped it. And those numbers don't even tell the story about how bad Cam Ward looked in that first preseason game. I think he's going to play again this weekend. But he could not hit the red side of a barn. As my dad used to say, he couldn't throw a pea in the ocean. Like, he was just erratic, missing guys by a yard and a half. And it's like, my whole feeling about preseason football, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, I don't care if you look good in the preseason. Like, Drew Aller looked good in his debut. Carson Beck looked good in his debut. Fernando Mendoza looked okay in his debut. I don't care if you look good. What I do care about is if you look bad in the preseason, because the preseason is set up for you to look good. It's vanilla defense, vanilla offense, right? Guys are just learning the plays. Everything is set up for you to look good, for you to perform well. And for him to perform the way he did, Cam Ward, that is, that has to raise some eyebrows at a minimum and have you shaking your head, because this continues a trend for him in the NFL. Last season, the Tennessee Titans were bottom of the NFL in most passing metrics, right? I think it was 31st in EPA and 31st in passing success rate. Specifically to Cam Ward, 56 PFF grade, which is not great. He had more turnover-worthy plays than big-time throws, which is horrible. And then just in the numbers that you guys would all know, 32nd in passing yards per game, 28th in QBR, 31st in passer rating. And he was 1st in sacks taken, but I don't think you want to be 1st in that category. That's just me. So by any metric that you like, whatever one is your favorite, Cam Ward was horrible. And yet, I have people asking me in the mailbag, like, what do you think about Shedeur Sanders? You ready to jump off the train? Ready to throw in the towel? Like, why is nobody asking that about Cam Ward? Because Cam Ward was the number 1 overall pick. Whatever stuff you have to say about Shedeur and whether he's good or not should be directed at that guy. That's just my opinion. Let's see if I can sneak in at least one more, maybe 2. Mayor asks, I don't know if that's a first or last name. Mayor asks, what do you think about my Cavs, baby, making noise in the East? ? I think he's referring to the flurry of moves the Cavs made this week. One of them being James Harden coming back. We all saw that coming. But the big one, of course, Peyton Watson being traded to them and him getting a new deal. For Cleveland, I love it. I love it because, again, we knew Harden was coming back. That's a different conversation. So we'll put that to the side. But I believe that Peyton Watson is the exact kind of player that would fit in well there in Cleveland, even more so than LeBron James. Now, LeBron's a better player, no doubt, but in terms of fit of what they needed, Peyton Watson, you could not do better than him. He is a prototypical 3-and-D wing, about 6'8", 200 pounds. He's going to slot in right there at the 3, in between Mobley and Allen in the front court, Harden and Mitchell in the back court. He's going to be able to defend the best offensive player on one side. He's going to be able to hit the 3 at a 40% clip, provided he stays healthy. He is a very, very good player. And the last I checked, he's only 24 years old. So he's just entering his prime. And to get him at the deal they got feels like a bargain to me. I think he's going to be really good. We'll see if Cleveland can make some noise in the playoffs. I don't think so because I've never been a big James Harden guy in the postseason. Jared Allen famously said the playoff lights were too bright for him, right? Evan Mobley's kind of inconsistent, but in the regular season, they're awesome. I think they're going to be really good. I think they're going to be a top 4 seed for sure. And I think in terms of what they were trying to do, Peyton Watson slotting into that 3-and-D as your small forward is a perfect offseason for them, especially when you consider the limited assets that they had, right? So that's one. But the offshoot of that, the inverse of that trade is what the hell's going on in Denver, right? Like the Denver Nuggets, who fancy themselves as a finals contender, just had to get rid of their only good young asset. Now, I understand the financial ramifications, right? They're a second apron team, and them choosing not to re-sign Peyton Watson and letting him go basically for nothing saves them like $500 million in luxury tax. So like financially, I understand it, right? But you look at the return that they got. They get a 2031 Cavs first and a 2032 Kings second. And if I'm Nikola Jokic, I am absolutely pissed right now. Like, what do I care about 2031 Cavs first rounder and a 2032 Kings second rounder? Nikola Jokic is going to be 36 years old by the time those picks convey. And if I'm Nikola Jokic, a 3-time MVP, finished in the top 6, or excuse me, finished in the top 2 for 6 straight seasons, like he is by definition the best player in the world during that stretch. Now we'll see moving forward. You know, Shea's a back-to-back MVP. Victor Wembanyama is coming if he's not already here, right? So maybe his stranglehold on that title gets relinquished a little bit. I think I even wrote for the Recliner Media website that he could not be the best in the world because he keeps flaming out in the playoffs, and I think I still stand by that. But you know, by any definition, for the last 5 years, Nikola Jokic has been the best player in the world. And he's currently eligible for a max extension. He said he's going to pass on that. He's going to wait one more year because even though he can get 4 for $278, he's going to wait for 5. I think it's $360 if he signs in next year instead of this year. And he has said repeatedly that his plan is to stay forever in Denver. And I think that's probably still going to happen. But if I'm him, I'm definitely having second thoughts. Because you're wasting one of the great players in NBA history right now. Like, he's holding up his end of the bargain. I just mentioned it. He has been, without a doubt, the best player in the NBA for about 5 years, at least. Statistically, at least. And now, because your front office overpaid Christian Brown, has refused to move off of the off-injured Aaron Gordon. And this is the other one that's not talked about enough. Overpaid for Jamal Murray. Like, I know Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic, they make sweet music together. They're a great fit. The combo is incredible. I understand that. But you can't be paying 30, 35% of the cap to a guy who's a one-time all-star and expect to field a competitive roster in today's NBA. And CJ McCollum's NBA of the second apron. You just can't do it. And so for them to basically say that because of financial purposes, the only good young player we have has to go for financial purposes. What are we even doing here? You are wasting Nikola Jokic best years. Whatever's left of his prime, you're wasting it. Maybe this is jaded coming from me as a Laker fan, because I've said before, and I'll say it again, it's different here in Los Angeles. We are judged by championships, nothing else. We are in the championship business, and maybe in Denver it's different. Maybe they're like, hey, we got our one. We're good. We move on. But as a basketball fan, as a sports fan, again, I'm take away my Laker fan. I'm just as an objective sports fan, to see what's happening to Nikola Jokic right now is really disappointing. Because he should be in the mix. he is still absolutely good enough to be in the mix. And if I'm being realistic about this upcoming season, I see no scenario where the Denver Nuggets are a championship team as constructed. I can't count on Aaron Gordon to stay healthy. Christian Brown is not very good. Cam Johnson is okay for what he is. He's a 3 and D who's more 3 than D, but he's okay. And Jamal Murray is paid like a superstar who is just a star, a one-time all-star. The bench has nothing to speak of. So it's like, what exactly are we doing? So if I'm Nikola Jokic, I got to think long and hard about that extension. We'll see. All right, I'm going way later. Like I got no time for the rest of these mailbag questions. Sorry about that, folks. This has been the Restricted Area Podcast. Make sure you check out the YouTube channel. You check all the great Recliner Media content. Until next time. First, follow me on X. Follow me on Instagram, Matt the Producer RG, both places. Okay. Until next time. Peace out.